and they had asked me to play with her up in San Jose. Little did I know, I thought they had, I didn't know they had the Eagles in mind, kind of.
Nobody ever thought Randy Meisner, the quiet, gentle founding member of the Eagles, was capable of hate. But when he reached 77, something changed. The man who spent his whole life avoiding fights suddenly broke a silence he'd carried for decades and named the 5 musicians who wounded him the most. One was his closest friend. One was already dead. What he revealed didn't just shock fans. It shattered the myth of the peaceful eagle forever. So let's find out. Don Henley, the one Randy feared more than anyone else. At the very top of Randy Meisner's hate list sits a name nobody is surprised to see: Don Henley. But what will surprise you is just how far things went behind the scenes. Because Randy didn't just dislike Henley. He felt crushed by him. From the moment the Eagles began rising, Henley took control in a way that left everyone else orbiting around him. He decided the recording schedule, the touring pace, the image, the sound, even the interviews. Randy, who struggled with anxiety and hated confrontation, felt swallowed up by Henley's dominance. Tension first boiled over during one of these nights in 1975. Randy wasn't feeling well and asked if he could redo a vocal the next day. People present say Henley glared at him and snapped, "You either sing it now or move aside." Randy Fosen. It was the moment he realized he no longer had a voice in the band, literally or figuratively. The pressure only grew worse on the Hotel California tour. Randy was dealing with cracked ribs, ulcers from stress, and mounting panic attacks. He'd try to warm up backstage, hands shaking, feeling the weight of tens of thousands of fans expecting pitch-perfect high notes. Instead of support, Henley brushed off his pain. He even labeled Randy a hypochondriac. That wasn't a casual insult. It rewrote Randy's legitimate medical issues into a character flaw. After that time, Henley and Frey would hold closed-door meetings while Randy waited outside, unsure if he was even included anymore. They made decisions like he wasn't there, the crew member said. He looked lost. And then came the financial blow. When the band reunited in 1994, Henley and Frey demanded the lion's share of the money. Randy wasn't invited in, wasn't consulted, and wasn't respected. Later, he just said, "I built that band with them. How did I end up being worth so little?" That feeling stayed with him. Randy once summed up his final months with Henley in a single chilling line: "The silence hurt more than the shouting." And Henley never apologized for all that time. So to Randy, that wound never closed. Glenn Frey. The brother who turned into Randy's worst nightmare. If there was one betrayal Randy Meisner never got over, it came from Glenn Frey. Boy vi Frey truk hi troten doitu ha tung laban, tung tin nyao nuangam. Everything snapped on one night. Knoxville, Tennessee, June 1977. Randy was exhausted, bruised, and barely breathing from cracked ribs. He told the band he couldn't hit the high notes on "Take It to the Limit" that night. He expected understanding. Instead, Frey exploded. He shouted, "Then what the hell are you even doing here?" Randy, pushed to the edge, swung at him. The two had to be separated. Fans knew nothing. That moment stayed buried for decades. And that wasn't even the worst part. In the weeks leading up to Knoxville, Frey had grown colder. He criticized Randy for staying silent in interviews. He mocked Randy's shyness in front of crew members. Someone who worked the tour later said, "Glenn treated him like dead weight." That slow drip of disrespect is what made the Knoxville blow-up inevitable. After the punch, Glenn didn't calm down. He cornered Randy later that night and said the words that broke him. "If you're this unhappy, why don't you just quit?" That wasn't advice. It was exile disguised as a suggestion. Randy knew it. He left the band a few months later, telling a friend privately that Frey made the atmosphere unlivable. and that unresolved silence. That's what hurt Randy the most. He was the wound Randy carried until the end. Irving Azoff, the manager who turned Randy's career into a battlefield. What could make Randy Meisner and Irving Azoff, a musician and his own manager, explode into one of the ugliest behind-the-scenes conflicts in rock history? The answer is ruthless power, silent sabotage, and a betrayal Randy never saw coming. Azoff entered the Eagles' world in the early 70s with a reputation everyone feared. People in the industry called him the shark you hire when you want blood on the floor. That attitude worked wonders for Henley and Frey, but it destroyed Randy. The first major blow came after Randy left the Eagles and started promoting his solo album. He expected support from the manager who once negotiated million-dollar deals for the band. Instead, radio stations weren't getting promo copies, interviews disappeared, and tours fell apart before they even started. Randy finally confronted Azoff at his office, hoping for an explanation. Witnesses say Azoff stormed out of his chair and screamed down the hallway, "Get the hell out of here! You're done!" Randy walked out shocked. He didn't know then that this was only the beginning. Months later, he found out why everything collapsed so quickly. Friends told him that Henley and Frey allegedly warned Azoff, "If you manage Randy, we'll find someone else." To Randy, that wasn't just betrayal. It was a professional death sentence. Azoff had chosen his side, and it wasn't Randy. But the deepest cut came years later when Azoff helped create the history of the Eagles documentary. Randy hoped the film would finally show the truth about what he lived through. Instead, viewers saw a version that made him look weak, irresponsible, and unstable. Critics quietly noted how much the film favored Henley, Frey, and Azoff himself. One insider even said it felt like someone wrote Randy out of the band's legacy. That comment destroyed Randy. He told a friend, "They act like I was never part of it." When Randy tried to rejoin the band for the 1994 reunion, he reached out to Azoff directly. He didn't beg. He simply asked if there was room for him. The answer was silence. None of Randy's songs were included on the set list. Not one. Since then, Randy never forgave the humiliation. In Randy's eyes, Irving Azoff wasn't just a manager. He was the man who made sure Randy Meisner disappeared. Don Felder, the friend who broke Randy's last piece of trust. Randy Meisner didn't expect loyalty from people like Henley or Frey. But Don Felder? That hurt in a different way, because Felder was the one guy Randy thought would stand beside him when everything else in the Eagles turned into a battlefield. And that's exactly why this betrayal stung deeper than the fights. When Felder joined the Eagles in 1974, he and Randy bonded instantly. Felder used to pull Randy aside after tense rehearsals and joke, "Man, one day we're gonna get out of this circus." Randy believed him. For a while, they were the two guys trying to survive in a band ruled by two kings. So when Randy left the Eagles in 1977, Felder and Joe Walsh floated the idea of forming a new group, finally building something without Henley or Frey calling the shots. Randy felt hope for the first time in months. He started writing again. He told a friend, "Maybe this time I won't be pushed out." But the plan died the moment Felder realized making peace with Henley and Frey was safer. Instead of backing Randy, he distanced himself. Randy heard through crew members that Felder stopped talking about the trio project entirely. No confrontation, no explanation, just silence. That silence cut more than Henley's insults ever did. Then came the book, Heaven and Hell. Fans expected Felder to finally expose how Randy had been mistreated. Instead, Randy's story was barely mentioned. Felder detailed every fight he had with Henley and Frey, every argument, every blow-up. But when it came to Randy, he skimmed past the truth. Randy reportedly said, "He knew what I went through, he just didn't put it in." And when the Eagles reunited in 1994, Randy was left out entirely. He reached out, hoping at least Felder would push for him. Nothing happened. Randy later told someone close, "You'd think someone would speak up for me." Felder didn't. The only time Felder spoke warmly was after Randy died. But tributes don't repair decades of silence. To Randy, Don Felder wasn't the loudest enemy. He was the quietest heartbreak. Joe Walsh, the ally who walked away when Randy needed him most. The tension between Randy Meisner and Joe Walsh didn't explode overnight. It snapped in a single backstage moment during the Eagles' fractured late 70s tour. A crew member overheard Joe say, "I can't fix your problems, man." Randy fired back, "I never asked you to fix anything. Just don't act like you don't know what's happening." That was the instant their friendship cracked. Randy never hated Joe the way he hated Henley or feared Frey, but he carried a quiet resentment toward him, the kind that grows when someone you trusted suddenly switches sides. When Walsh joined the Eagles in 1975, Randy was one of the first to welcome him. He loved Joe's humor, the looseness, the energy he brought. For a while, Joe felt like the only buffer Randy had against the increasing control of the band's leaders. But things changed fast. The band shifted from country rock harmonies into a harder, heavier sound, and Randy felt the ground move beneath him. He wasn't just being musically replaced. He was being culturally replaced. Fans shouted louder for Walsh's guitar solos than Randy's high notes. Management pushed for a new direction. Henley and Frey leaned on Walsh as the fresh identity of the band, and Randy, exhausted and anxious, faded further into the background with every show. After Randy left the Eagles in 1977, Walsh and Felder talked about forming a new group with him, finally giving Randy a place where he wouldn't be pushed aside. Randy believed it. He started rehearsing again, thinking maybe this was his chance to breathe. But the plan evaporated without warning. Walsh backed away, choosing to keep his position inside the Eagles rather than risk angering Henley and Frey. For Randy, that abandonment cut deeper than Knoxville. He once said privately, "I could forgive the band, but not Joe walking away." And then came the ultimate sting, Joe performing "Take It to the Limit" on stage after Randy left. That song was Randy's identity, his signature, the one thing he created that nobody else could touch. Hearing Walsh take it over felt like an erasure. The damage was already done. So now that you've heard the names Randy Meisner kept silent for decades, which one shocked you the most? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more untold stories, more hidden confessions, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next revelation.